ladies and gentlemen, to a very different episode today. This is going to be the opening entry in what will hopefully become a regular series in what we bring to you as a side project of the Protective Insight podcast. We're looking to provide a degree of comprehensive information that everybody can get to grips with, no matter what their vocation, no matter what their experience, no matter what their monetary backgrounds and levels are. So we thought we would start that off with one of many book reviews, right? And so today we are looking at this, which is Talk, The Science of Conversation by Elizabeth Stokoe. I know mine and Jim's copies are both beaten and bruised over the years that we've both been taking stock of the information that is contained within. So let me just give you a bit from the back in order to tell you a little bit more about who she is. Elizabeth Stokoe, a social psychologist, has spent over 20 years collecting and analyzing real conversations across settings as varied as first dates, crisis negotiations, sales encounters, and medical communication. This book describes some of the findings of her own research and that of other conversation analysts around the world. So the reason, well, not the reason, because there are many reasons why I like it, but it was this paragraph at the back that really sold it to me, other than, you know, everybody else that we know, Bob and other people saying you should get this book. It's like it's the close reference to the Secret Life of Pronouns, that one. But this was the paragraph at the back. Through numerous examples from real interactions between friends, partners, colleagues, police officers, mediators, doctors, and many others, you'll learn some of what you think you know about talk is wrong. And that was the comprehensive understanding that really sold it for me, because especially when you know, we mentioned it last time, working on the, you know, the lowly rung of security, with it being the doormen and the various interactions that you would have with, you know, young people, old people, angry people, tired people, hungry people, drunk people, groups of many differing ages and ranges and interests and physical dispositions. The one thing that went between them all is talking to them, not talking at them, not talking with them, talking to them, you know. And it was that kind of particular distinction about the words that you use within that way. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about this book and how it's helped our methods and how it's helped our experiences throughout the working world. Whether it be from the security backgrounds or you know, certain average everyday conversations that we can improve. The more you can bring these types of skills, tactics, techniques into your everyday life, the more you inhabit them and the easier it becomes for you to utilize them, right? How's your experience been in the book, mate?
Well, you just started off good. I hope someone gets a good idea of it. While jumping in, I'll start off too. Just to let you know, we're doing these book reviews on our own free will and experience what we're choosing. We're not paid sponsors or anything by any of these authors, anyone that writes the books. These are just things that Ben and I, and the fun thing will be is we have a lot of similar books in our library, and of course we'll have some that differ. But ultimately our goal is we want to help you become better. Something we do all the time is have conversations like we are here today, and you're listening to us. So we're hoping we're communicating right. What I found fascinating with this before I even read the book is, like, you know, when you're dealing with humans and conversationally, like when you've come across somebody and you've greeted them and you say, hello, how are you? But they just dismiss you and kind of bypass you. They're in a hurry. We have like these feelings of like being jaded or upset or why. Or if I'm like, hey, good morning, and someone jumps right into giving me a bunch of demands that they need from me out of the workday, right? We have these internal feelings. But for the most part, I can say for myself, and probably many of you out there too, if you haven't thought about it, we don't know why those feelings have occurred, right? And then you get a hold of this and you go, well, that makes sense. There actually is, like, animals have a language, things have language, humans have a language. And this kind of takes everything and puts it into a nice context of, okay, this is why. interesting the choice of words, how they choose them.
Yeah.
Um, just when it comes to people, when they do come to marketing, it doesn't have to be spoken words sometimes, but just getting people
Yeah.
to do something else. I think it was like the other day, a friend of mine had sent me a thing because they came across a sign. They were like, this is an interesting way of telling people to keep off their grass. And the sign says, rattlesnakes spotted in the area, stay on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So rather than tell you keep back, stay back, which can be people could take that offensively or there, something as simple as saying rattlesnakes
Yeah.
spotted in the area, stay on the sidewalk. People are like, whoa, you give them a different perspective.
Yeah.
Then you learn that with this communication, right? And I love it because she breaks it down between the different types of first movers in here. Um, some of the nuances in the book, if you've never done any transcribing, I suggest
Yes.
just do a brief overview of it because everything in the book is broken down through actual transcription, not what you
Yeah.
believe it to be, but legitimate transcription with the marking and understanding of the tone and pitch and
Mm.
speed and cadence of things. So it really gets you diving into it of the nuances of it. Um, but I will say, once finding this and looking at this, and then going back into my area and background of law enforcement, and watching all these viral videos go in of traffic stops, things that people call
Yeah.
routine. I can't stand that word because there's nothing routine. There's so
Well,
many
it indicates
unknowns.
complacency, doesn't it? If something's become
Oh,
routine.
it says you hear it all the time. An officer did this in a routine traffic stop, or police did this routinely. Like there's no routine.
No.
You may have a set of steps that you're going through, but there's nothing routine. There's nothing ever the same.
Yeah.
I could do the same task of having to walk somebody across the street every day, 10 hours a day, but each person is different walking them across the street. There's nothing routine about it.
No.
Anything can happen at any given time. And what I find it for a lot of part is what people have discounted in the realm of law enforcement training, because we spoke about it in
Mm.
earlier things. When it comes to conversations, they're not really taught that much
No.
or explained that much. And this gives you some better insights on what's happening,
Mm.
on those traffic stops. The person in the car, for the most part, there's a lot of unknowns.
Yes.
Everybody, regardless if you're a law enforcement officer or a citizen, the minute you see the red and blue lights come on behind you, everyone's heartbeat races,
Yeah.
right? Everyone gets an end. It's like, oh man, what did I do? What have I done? So they're already at an elevated heart rate. They're already stressed. They don't know. So that's where you, as approaching that vehicle to make that impression with how
Mm.
we communicate and talk to people, is very key in how that interaction is going to go.
Yeah.
What I've found through my research of giving a proper greeting, good morning, good afternoon, sir, ma'am, how are you? I'm Deputy so and so with the sheriff's office. The reason for me stopping you today is XYZ. How are you? How is everything? Kind of give them the opportunity to respond. They know why I'm there. I'm starting to de-escalate them or help them get down emotionally. Now they get it, they understand. So now we're going to the next steps of the conversation. I can ask them that. When you go back and you start looking at all these traffic stops that have gone viral, that have gone bad, there's violations of the science of the communication that's outlined in this book.
Mm.
An officer goes up, they may do a greeting, but they don't allow the driver to greet back, and they go right into demanding of license and registration, constant demanding while they're asking, what did I do?
Yeah.
What is it? So help them, give them that information. Nothing is too fed or sped up that you can just stop for a minute and level that out and have an understanding of what is going on. And you can transition these folks through that communication.
Yeah.
And we have so many things we can elevate and de-escalate as much just by how we talk, Ben. And we can get into that, a lot of things.
100%.
But just for me, just seeing that and having an understanding, and then once you have this understanding, the way she breaks it down, it's I don't want to say technical, but it gives you like those technical aspects,
Yeah.
because it gets into like the simple things of when you're watching a TV show.
Yeah.
Why does the audience laugh? Because the pauses and things are done or written because they're all conversational analysts. This is what's going to spark this, the right amount of pause, and then this effect is what's going to get an engagement in there. And once you start getting these little things, like your conversations generally, personally, professionally, for me, they seem to have improved. And it also, for me, and I'm going to slow down here because I'm a talker, right? Ben's a talker. So at some point you can realize, okay, I'm over talking this conversation. I need to step back a minute and allow the other person, because if we're looking and watching, then it's like, okay. And they get into that in this book because it's like, man, what is that response we're getting? Are we losing interest, or did I say something, or how I said it? I need to give this back to
Yeah.
this person, right? And it make the conversation more about them again. So, you know, I'm talking a lot here because of what we're doing and the nature of this, but for the
Excitement.
most part, believe it or not, in the profession, if I'm interviewing, I barely talk. But
That's
we feel
it.
to like to explain this, right, and be like selfless. I talk about with our experience and
Mm,
understanding and trainings is we want to give it out there. So if I'm silent and not talking, you won't grasp what it is we're talking about.
absolutely.
But it's just like I don't know. I just found it to be like a really, it was a really to me quick read. It's not that thick of a book. You
No,
know, I've got all different notes and
a couple
pages
of
folded
hundred.
in here. Um, so it's something you can sit down after, you know, a long day or in between
Yeah,
on your breaks.
260, 260
And
pages.
yeah, and it's stuff that you can, I found readily apply. And once you go through like a chapter and understand, oh, okay, this is how the reciprocity works. This is how it
Mm,
looks like transcribed in a conversation.
yeah,
Now we can step back and we can see that in our own conversations. Wouldn't you
yeah.
say, Ben?
Oh, 100%, 100%. That nuance that you mentioned, it really got me thinking about the way that you would make introductions when you're working sort of nightclub security. When you think about the cultural differences of communication over here in the UK, the kind of hello, colloquially speaking, is how are you? You know, you might walk past someone on the street and go, "You're right, how are you?" And on a you know, kind of middle to working class level, it's understood that no one really cares how you are. They're just saying hello. Whereas when you do that in the environment, when you know, you need to go and speak to a couple of guys in the corner that look like, you know, some kind of issues about to come to the fore, there is some kind of action. I mean, that's some kind of action happening, whatever it is, you need to go over and talk to them. If you walk over there and go, "You're right, guys," they're immediately on the back foot as a point of this nuance. They know that you don't really care how they are. They know that you're over there just to suspect something and get involved with the emotions. Whereas if what you were saying earlier, you go over and you give them the proper greeting, you know, you go over there and say,
Oh yeah.
you know, like, "Hey guys, you having a good night?" Show your interest and whatnot, dissipate the mood, communicate that intention with them, and then you're free to make some kind of inquiry as to what's happening in that moment. But if you just go over there with that kind of, "You're right, guys," it is like sitting down at a poker table, but just showing everyone your cards. That's
Mhm.
that's that's something I really only understood from reading that book. Sorry, the I suppose there is a degree of watching of a book involved, but you know, that's not really
Yeah,
what I
you
meant.
know, yeah, well, it's because you are watching it, right? You read
Yeah,
in the book, it's about conversation,
yeah,
but you are watching because it's those same things it comes down to,
yeah.
right? We're putting
Creating
the
in here.
totality of it, right? It's a
Yeah,
science of conversation, but as you're approaching those people, what are some of those key things before you even speak, right? People already have made an assessment or a judgment on you,
yeah,
how many feet away before you even approach them. So what is it that you're doing? Are you posturing? You know, if you're working the dorm and you know those big bouncers and they puff
yeah.
their chests and everything, and it's like before you even get there and say anything, you're already viewing,
Decisions
okay,
made.
this guy's anticipating there to be a problem. And if I'm already maybe having a bad day and you're coming at me like you want to fight, then what do you think is going to happen? That person is going to bow up to you the same. You know, we're not saying like shrink, make yourself small,
No.
walk with an air of
Yeah,
confidence. But then again, it comes into what words do you pick, right? Some guys in the corner that you anticipate to maybe, and all you got to do is like, "How's it going, guys? Don't you love when people are out here just enjoying themselves, having a good
yeah,
time, and no one's causing any trouble?"
yeah,
Oh yeah, man. You know, then they agree, and we're starting to plant the seed of you're not causing any trouble tonight,
yeah. You're not.
right? You know, because we want to enjoy it, and there, and we create that engagement, and now it's like a happy smile like when you're talking to them, and just how we choose our words and the manner
Yeah,
in which we say them and put them into that conversation, we can influence a lot of those things. So those guys that are potentially beat outcome, we do something totally different with our conversation in the right way,
yeah.
and we have a lot to gain from that. But it can
100%.
also go terribly wrong, right?
Well, that's the nature of anything, you know. Despite what you would hear on the internet somewhere, humans don't behave in the way that equations do. You
No,
can't say that you've observed X and Y, therefore Z, right?
no,
You can
and
say you've
like,
observed X and Y, Z could happen,
yep.
but this and this could happen as well. But yeah, on that, she really got me thinking about the power of the word willing.
Mm.
Willing, when she was talking about her use within crisis negotiation, as well as arguments amongst family and friends. And that's something that I applied virtually nightly, because Stoke ain't exactly the most pleasant place to go for a drink. So when you'd have to go over and you'd have these opening lines and whatnot, and it would get to that stage where you have to address the proverbial elephant in the room, and instead of saying things like, just come over here and have a chat with me, like some people have said in education, just come where I can hear you. People, but despite how drunk they are, people aren't that stupid that you're just trying to separate them. If you're looking
Mhm.
for that kind of nuance that tells you exactly where you are in that moment, willing.
Oh yeah.
Would you be willing to come over here and just have a quick chat with me?
Oh yeah.
The yes no, it's different. I know where I are. I know where I am with you there in that moment. So
Oh,
you're willing to direct.
100%. And a lot of it is too, is a lot of it is getting permission from that
Yeah,
person, right? You mind
yeah,
if I ask you a question real quick? And just prompting, if you don't mind, because once we get somebody and they say yes, they're willing, or yes, they give you permission,
yeah,
well, man, we just proverbially really won a lot of the battle,
yeah,
because now we've got them consciously and subconsciously to agree now to walk over to a particular area with us or answer our question. So
yeah,
depending on how we word that question, those things, that's again ability to influence, because once someone gives you those permissions and does that, people naturally want to help, right? That's the next stage. People naturally want to help. So then be smart,
yeah,
understand your outcome and how you approach in your demeanor when you go into the next phases of that, when we're questioning and getting those adjacent pairs. She likes to, talk about that things should match as we're doing things. If I say hello, Ben, I should pause and wait for a hello back, Jim. If there's something off there, then that's where I start looking at that validate, dismiss, clarify again, right?
totally,
Because there's a
totally.
reason why Ben didn't come back and say good morning, because I already have had those interactions with you.
Yeah,
Now I can pick up that there's something off and the conversation didn't match when it came to the pairings. So that should prompt me to stop and go, okay. And that's what I love with this book too, is because it just further adds to some stuff we're already doing of, if you're in an environment, which a lot of things where you should be, maybe you're at a conference,
yeah,
maybe you're at a business meeting, entering a boardroom, right? Most part everyone works together. There's a level of that commonality. We work together, so we should be getting along.
mm,
So when we're greeting or shaking hands, there should be a level of those pairs matching within the conversation. But if
yeah,
we're
yeah,
like saying hello and this person, like I said, jump in here, all of
mm,
a sudden rambling off demands of what project got to get done for today. Well, we skipped a bunch of steps. People are going to feel a certain way. It
100%,
changes the attitude in the room, the
100%.
attitude of the people, right? It affects morale, I would even go to say.
Yeah,
So now, are you really going to get them to work on those tasks? Do you think as a leader or a manager, you're doing it the proper way to get the most out of your team? Or do you think now you've just gave more space here by messing up that conversation to allow barriers to form and those
yeah,
blockades to where, guess what? Nothing's going to get done. And people are going to start talking about you behind your back on how much of a butthead or a jerk you are, because he couldn't even say hello to me. He went in here and gave me this list of 20 things that I got to do. He
yeah,
couldn't just say hello. He knows I just came back from maybe having a family matter or
mm,
issue, or something like that or whatnot. Like he couldn't take the time to see me or hear me as a person. And on this, people start taking those things personally. So you got to stop before you do that. Although you may mean nothing by it.
yeah,
You could
yeah,
be just in a rush and I got 10 minutes for this meeting before I got the next one because I'm the boss.
yeah, yeah.
But you don't understand how that's like coming in and just dropping a bomb on your people. And it's just, man, now we got chaos. People just everywhere. So I would impart on people, like, you want to read this book and understand it, because those little things you think don't mean nothing, they do to people on the other side of those
100%.
conversations.
100. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the title, for example, talk. What's the difference between the sentence of, um, can I talk to you, and can I speak to you?
Mhm.
There's a world of difference in terms of directness, assertiveness. In that way, talk is softer. Speak ain't.
Yeah. Yeah.
speaks the other side. So learning to navigate that difference. It's closely connected to the work of Brene Brown within emotional granularity, and the way
Mm.
people talk about how they feel in that way. If you're really going to understand someone, that they need the specificity in that moment. Like if somebody's, oh, I was just having a sad day, not that you would say this is conversationally poor, but you could think to yourself, well, is it sad? Or is it a composite bunch of things that makes them think it's sad, that they're just
Hmm.
referencing as because they don't know how to verbalize? So I could treat it as carte blanche sadness, or I could treat it as what it is underneath because of the specificity behind it. And that's
Mm.
really what the science of conversation from this woman, it brought to the fore, in that words matter. How you have a conversation,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
matters.
100%. And I believe that's even one of the chapters in there.
Yeah,
The words you choose matter,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, and they 100% do, right? Because it's like I said, it comes back to then, what is the reasoning for that conversation? Are you trying to be effective or not?
mm,
Are you trying to influence someone? And not we're not looking at influence from like a way of people with these desires to like manipulate or anything. It's just influence is just like I want you genuinely want you to feel
yeah,
better. So I
yeah,
want to influence you from having that sad day. Maybe if we've encountered that, maybe you're there and you've had a couple of these things that hit you and they hit you all at once, right? Because we
mm,
all know behaviors and things isn't really one thing. One thing in general isn't going to make you sad.
mm,
But if you hit a couple of road bumps, a couple of things, and you got, kicked while you're down a couple of times and having a bad day at work and things,
yeah,
all of a sudden you got this overwhelming feeling. So maybe I want to influence you to show you, because how many times do we hear, man, I've had a terrible day. I've had such a bad day. And you're like, there's 24 hours in a day. Did you really have a bad day, or
hey,
did you have a bad 10 minutes out
yeah,
of a 24-hour day, or a bad half hour?
yeah.
When they stop and you put it in that context, people are like, huh, I had a bad two
It
minutes
it
out of my
reframes it,
8-hour
doesn't it?
workday.
Yeah,
Okay, then why are we even letting that impact us, right? Because 2 minutes is nothing, it's done, but yet you have hours of a good day. But
yeah.
we're gonna let that little bit, and especially when it's something you can't control, and we'll get into that and other things because we'll probably get into some tips and things and so
That's a
because I'm
whole
a
other.
big
That's a whole other
of
day.
somebody, but that's a whole nother thing of just the understanding of like, okay, you can't control that. So we want to be
Mm,
able to communicate, tell people like, hey, look, it's really not that bad.
yeah,
Like it seems like, you had this terrible day, but look at it from the outside looking. Let's change the perspective for a second
hundred
and look
percent.
at it from here. And like, wow, so I want to influence you to that different perspective or that different role to see it for your benefit and your good to realize, well, crap, I'm beating myself up, being
Right.
an Eeyore or whatnot, saying, I'm having this sad, lonely day. And it's like, no, man, you had a great day. You had that bad 2 minutes, but look what you did. You closed X amount of sales, or you did
Right.
this. Maybe you just saved a life and long. It's like there's nothing really at that point in matter for you to let that 2 minutes, that half hour
Yeah.
ruin you and just totally deteriorate your mindset and just ruin any potential good conversations you may have. Because if I allow me in a bad mood to affect me like that emotionally, then it doesn't matter what kind of great news Ben has when he tries to talk to you. I'm tuned out. I'm not talking to. So you now neglect the opportunity to have a great conversation. Yeah.
That's the chapter. That's the chapter you want for for
Yeah.
all for all this kind of stuff, in that
Yes.
way, right? Because given our job roles, we are dealing with somebody who is being questioned. Insults are invariably one of the first weapons of choice, in that way, but they're just words, and the only way they're going to connect to you is if you make them connect to you, in that way. So the more you understand that nuance, the
Oh
easier
yeah.
the
Well, you
easier
got to understand the
navigation becomes for
nuance,
you.
right? But it's also an understanding of the relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
It's probably easier to turn that off
Mm,
when it's someone that you just met, an acquaintance, or maybe even like work related. But if it's your spouse, and you had that bad day and they triggered and you poked them in the wrong way and they hit
yeah,
it, you're more likely to take that emotionally, take that personally when you got to sit there and step because in the grand, regardless if it's personal, professional,
mm,
the main thing you got to step back and look at when you walk into some of these things is, all right, it's not about me. I just got home, or I just walked in the office. And whatever that bad mood, bad day is that you just had all those sticks and stones thrown at you for, you weren't even the intended target. But
right.
what we do is a lot of people tend to, we knee jerk reaction emotionally out of that, right? So we get rather than stop and think and go, wait a minute, this wasn't us. I had here, this has nothing to do with me. I need to step back and kind of unplug. Don't
Yeah,
attach to it. Don't take it personally.
yeah,
But then again, that's where you understand this and communication, and rather to respond emotionally than say something you don't mean or
yeah,
hurtful that could later then just create more animosity. Step back and unplug from it. utilize how that works. Let them get out whatever I have to say. Take all those stones and all that, and then it wouldn't. And then once you take that in and actively listen and pay attention to it, totally understand where you're coming from. Sounds like that person really gave you the runaround and treated like I could see how you felt disrespected.
100%.
You know, tell me more.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk more. Like not respond, but tell me more. Because the more you can tell me, the more I can understand. Now I can better then influence, guide, direct,
Massively.
and let's solve it. Because I'm more of a solutions person. You know, I've always one of those people like don't come in the door. Don't come to me with more problems. We all have problems, but come to me with a solution.
Yeah.
And the solution might not be 100% great plan, but if it's something we can work with and it's yours and you can own it, we'll work on that solution and I'll help you build it into a better solution if I can. But you're going to own it, and I'm going to get more out of it for there. And it was one of those I tell people all the time, you know, and it kind of ties in. It's like if you want something bad enough, you're going to do it, right? If you don't, you're going to find an excuse. And I've had this knack of just with, you know, kid growing up, you don't marry, it's telling them, we don't make excuses, you know, go separate for a minute, come back when you have solutions.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about those. I don't want to hear the problems,
Yeah.
you know, because nothing ever gets done, right? Because all that turns into is just a nag complain fest. And if we go in here to that, you know, you don't
all in there.
So we need to change it. And it all
there.
comes with the mindset aspect of it. But I would say just this, because Ben and I, as you can tell, this can go a whole bunch of ways and things from there. But I just want to tie it in. It doesn't matter where you are on this journey. We speak all the time. If you're a business owner, a lot of them, we come across indirect people all the time, and we do it verbally. What this does is it allows you to understand it, or when someone does something and it doesn't quite hit with you, the way the conversation's going, it's incongruent, something's wrong, then you kind of step back and you can figure out what type of person they are and how they converse, and now you can adjust yourself to find them and meet them, right? It's all about meeting people where they're at. That's how I look at things. Meet them where they're at. What needs they showing them? Meet them at their need.
Completely.
Identify and work through it.
Yeah.
But this gives you those tools of when you have that, okay, now I got a better understanding and I can better work with somebody, communicate, find solutions, whatever it is we need to do in those realms of it. And I picked this book up a couple of years ago. You know, I've been doing my stuff for years, and you mentioned it, Bob. Bob gave me a lot of great book recommendations because as we talk about law enforcement, don't get a lot of time for training. You know, went to school, I have a degree and all that fun stuff, but it's like never the stuff we don't apply, we're about there and do it. It's just all trial by fire.
Perishable.
And now I have the opportunity, like, okay, what did you say that was, Ben? What theory? Where is that? Where can I find that? Because now I'm in a room like I want to absorb more of that, so I now understand stuff I've been doing for years. I can actually go, oh, okay, there's a science behind that. I can you know, equate to it. Before people are like, man, how do you do that? You do so well in the interview room. We're doing this, and it's like I just follow my gut. You know, I look and listen to what I'm being given, and I just follow it. And I've been able to over countless times process and maneuver and put behavior things in there over time without inundating myself. I mean, academically, you know, because I don't have time to read a huge book. I've got to be able, like, I'm called to a scene and I got to act now, and I've got to de-escalate or do this. I have to work now, so I have to figure that out. Oh, that sparked an emotion. Let's back that off. Let's go here. This calms them down. Okay, more of that, you know. And it's like you're here, and it's like oh, and it's constantly you find it. You're like, oh, and then going, interesting. This kind of worked with this person. I wonder if it works with them. Okay, yeah, this kind of works. And there's some things varying on people doesn't. But now I can go back and look. A lot of things I did followed along a lot of these principles without really knowing it, because like I said, we have a language.
Yeah.
We feel it, we know when something's off, but we can't quite put it, because this actually gives you the method, the reasoning and method why we do it, and lets you go, okay, that's why that happened. And once you get that, now you can take what you're feeling, those experience. Now you can see those practices, the science behind that. And now you're like, well, crap, now I'm a better conversationalist.
And who knows where that can go? It's only going to go up, but where? That depends on your vocation. So as we say, we're not connected to Elizabeth or her entities in any way. We're just big fans. of what it does, and we can't recommend it highly enough, because I'm talking to Jim, Jim's talking to me, we're all talking to you, you all talk to each other. There's no way that this doesn't help anyone at any time in any place. So there will be a link in the subscription. There's a Freudian slip for you. Let's pretend that wasn't on purpose. There is a link in the information box below that will take you direct to the book to pick it up. It's not like a special link or anything. We're just making it easier for you to try and find it. That's right there. That's right there. That's where it is. We've helped you on your journey. Oh, and while you're down there, if you could click on the subscription button as well, you'd really be helping us out in order to help spread this word to everyone it is that we come across. So as ever, thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest, and pick up this at your earliest convenience to start having better, more accurate, and more nuanced conversations, right?
Yes. And if you pick it up, come back and comment and reach out to us, because we'd love to hear what you've learned and how you've applied it, and start a whole nother conversation.
100%. 100%. So with that in mind, guys, we will talk to you all soon. Stay tuned for another podcast episode coming your way very soon. And with that in mind, we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.